Your Partner in Success Radio is a free business podcast with host Denise Griffitts. It's all about great stories, conversation, and context to help you move your business and life forward with actionable tips and advice from her guest experts. To listen and subscribe, just find us on iTunes, Google Play, or wherever you consume your podcasts.
Good morning and welcome to Your Partner in Success Radio. I am your host, Denise Griffitts, and this podcast is ranked in the top 2% of the most popular podcasts globally. And honestly, it's all because of my guests. They are fantastic. And I am honored and blessed to share time with people who are at the top of the game, and they are here willing to help you get to where you want to be in life and in business. Now, my guest today, Robert Feldman, is the co-founder and CEO of WOWS, WOWS Insurance Services. And that's a pioneering company specializing in fire insurance solutions tailored for California's unique challenges. And right now, we're seeing an awful lot of fires. I was born and raised there. My family's still there. I'm constantly watching fires pop up, seemingly out of nowhere. That's just an observation. I don't know if it's true. So with 25 years of experience specializing in fire zones and hard-to-place risks, Robert has become a leading voice in addressing the current fire insurance crisis. And as home insurance rates have surged nearly 38% since 2019, Robert and his partners at WOWS have developed an innovative solution to reengineer homeowners insurance. And their approach leverages big data, cutting-edge analytics, and location intelligence to create a more sustainable and cost-effective model for life insurance. And today he is here to discuss the evolving fire risk landscape, the future of California's insurance market, and how WOWS Insurance Services is pioneering a new blueprint for the interesting. That's fascinating. And he's going to offer insights on what homeowners really need to know about their coverage. Write it down. Everybody who's listening, take notes. And he will share his vision for reengineering fire insurance to benefit all stakeholders in the long term. Robert, good morning and welcome to Your Partner in Success Radio. Hey, before we get started, can you tell us a bit about you and how you show up in the world?
Absolutely. First of all, thank you so much for having me on today. I always like to take a minute to say that. I'm honored to be here. You're in the top 2%. It's absolutely incredible to be here to talk about a really kind of important subject. I have to say in the past, in my world, insurance is not very popular, as you can imagine. Obviously, a lot of people are, think it's not necessary. Obviously, with fires over the last 10 to 15 years, even less within the last 5, it's become a much more important subject. On the West Coast, this has become such an issue that it's not just a California thing, it's a Western United States situation problem. There's problems in Park City, Utah, and Aspen, Colorado, and Bend, Oregon. And I mean, all these things. This is the great thing of what we're creating, is we're really creating the change. So my background is over 25 years in insurance. What's interesting is I was a field guy. I worked with senior executives of multiple insurance companies, helping bring carriers into California. Within the last couple of years, we launched the WOWS insurance program. Everyone can find it at wowsinsurance.com. That's WOWS insurance.com. Really what we're doing is fixing, and I use this comment all the time, of Einstein's theory of insanity. Our insurance world, when it comes to property, has been doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. And long story short, there's a lot of problems that need to be changed. We have successfully fixed and changed. I was pretty excited, I have to say, on a side note. I was talking to my London broker, because when you work as a insurance entity or working with insurance companies, you work with a reinsurance broker in London. The company is called CJ Coleman. And I'm very lucky to have an incredible gentleman. Can you be any more English when your name is Nigel? His name is Nigel. So
you were talking about that when you've said, reinsurance, I instantly went to Lloyd's of London.
Yep. And so I'm working with Deloitte Syndicus as the broker that represents me. And so Nigel, we had a great conversation. The program, as we continue to launch, is absolutely incredible. It has a bunch of incredible features. And what's unique about it is, when you really think about it, there's really multiple people that are involved in this. There's consumers, there's insurance companies, and then there's the reinsurance companies that support the insurance companies. That's the money behind most insurance companies. And so the product we've created actually fixes and it helps make all three of these in better condition or better shape than they were prior to. As you can probably, if you've probably seen in the news right now, insurance companies are non-renewing at record amounts.
I know. Listen, we had yesterday was the 20th anniversary of Hurricane Katrina.
Yep.
And I live quite literally equidistant between Hurricanes Katrina and Rita. So
Wow.
you can about imagine. And I bought my house right between those hurricanes because what was happening was that, companies in New Orleans and Texas were buying every house sight unseen that they could because their people were now displaced. And a lot of
Yep.
them are still here. But
Yep.
my point was not those two hurricanes. I live in hurricane season, and right now we're in, it'll be over in November, we hope. But the last hurricane Delta that hit me, it took my roof off. My
Wow.
insurance company, the minute my roof was replaced, they went into receivership.
Yep.
So the rest of my policy, the rest of my damage was never taken care of. So I get what you're talking about.
Yeah, and it's really a combination of a bunch of things. There's a lot of rules and changes in the West Coast, California specifically when it comes to the insurance and for wildfire. Every part of, to your point, Denise, has a lot of different elements to it. That's why insurance is very unique regionally. You're in an area where there's obviously wind hail is considered or hurricane coverage. California
Can't
and the
get
Western.
flooding insurance. It doesn't exist where I live.
Yeah, well, I mean, National Flood is always there. So
Right.
National Flood Program. Usually what you're talking about is excess flood because there's limitations to those policies. And so what happens is, believe it or not, even though West Coast is fire, Central South is hurricanes. What's interesting, and this is the really thing that came into to play is what's really failing insurance companies right now is, believe it or not, proximity or clustering of properties. When you think about the definition of insurance, insurance is gathering, it's a collection of or spread of risk, collection of premiums and spread of risk. Well, the problem is right now, like in California, a really scary situation. State Farm is going through, as one of many companies, is going through non-renewals right now. They're non-renewing 30,000 homes across California. And the reason for it is really
These people, what do they do next?
Well, and that's what we're helping with. So we're
Okay.
getting people to the right spots. We work with a ton of different insurance companies. Our program is very unique. It takes time. One of the great things we did with our program, one of the biggest things that everyone loves is it's the first policy that we found in the history of California that's fully transferable from sellers to buyers. So, for example, Denise, if you were to sell your house in California and you're in our program, the buyer can assume your insurance policy. Now, little tweaks
She
like
owns
this.
several homes there, and she's worried about all of them.
Yep. And so what happens is, this is where a lot of times you get into situations where, I mean, simple tweaks like this take out vibration of the market to help insurance carriers be in the market. And so what we're making changes, we're doing things, and we can really come in with a field approach first and foremost. This is not somebody that is looking at something on paper thinking that this is going to work conceptually. We have lived it. Me and when I say we, me and my business partners and my team have been through this better part of 25 years. We see what works. We see what doesn't work. We see what works for insurance companies. We see what doesn't work for insurance companies. And so what happens is, this is an all hands on deck moment. We are working with state regulators. We are working with insurance carriers. We are working with consumers, because we've got to bring everybody together to make this work, because the insurance rates are exploding so much in California on the West Coast. There are consumers that just can't afford their insurance any longer.
If you would, and I'll come back to ask you what advice you have for homeowners who are losing
Absolutely.
State Farm and all of that. But you mentioned early, and I wrote it down. Hang on a second. I'm losing my voice. You mentioned that it's not just a California thing, that it's impacting other states that are
Yep.
adjacent, if you will. When you said that, I went, I get it. Listen, when it gets real bad in California, my sister and her husband bail out. They go somewhere else
Yep.
where the air quality is breathable.
Yeah.
So that's
Well,
an issue as well.
Nevada's right behind it.
Oh
But
no.
well, meaning they're dealing with problems in the northern part of Nevada. But here's what's incredible. I say a million times, I think that there are good and then there are great different municipals to work with, like different states. Nevada and the Department of Insurance really is aggressively trying to get in front of it. Where right now in California, we're chasing the tail at this point, right? Trying to play catch up. Nevada sees the problem coming, and they were very aggressively working with us from the beginning. We'll be expanding to Nevada relatively soon to help that situation also, which also further helps people in California, because the problem that we run into is, again, proximity, as I started to mention. When State Farm's non-renewing 30,000 homes, it's not evenly spread across California. And there's a city called the Pacific Palisades, those that aren't familiar with it. And what ended up happening in California is they're non-renewing 69% of that total market. Think about that for a second.
What's going on in Pacific Palisades?
Well, what it is it's an oversaturation for an insurance company.
Oh.
So what happens in insurance, remember, diversify risk. So let's say, just for giggles, you and I have $1 billion. I wish I had $1 billion, but let's say we had $1 billion. And we're going to put $1 billion at risk in California. And we're a reinsurance company. Okay. That supports the insurance companies that then go to the brokers. That's the trail, as we would say. Right now, reinsurance companies don't even know where their risks are placed. So that's a big disconnect. We fixed that with the WOWS program. We work with the reinsurance carriers so that they can see all of their risks up front and spread out perfectly across California. The moment you spread the risks out so that you don't have a clustering, the analytics show it drastically reduces rates. So one of the changes
I have to ask you though, how do they not know? Are they not keeping track?
No, it's just, again, what's the Einstein's theory of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over again. It's a system that needs to change. So what we're changing is, and it's one of the negatives up front. Hey, listen, everyone out there, when you talk to me, everyone that knows me knows that I will tell you everything good and I will tell you the challenges of anything I do, whether it's watching football and the challenges of a game, in my opinion, or whether it's insurance or any part of life. We have some strength, fully transferable policy, being able to build it in a way to reduce costs over time, all these incredible things. The negative of the program is it's not fast. It's built in portfolios, and so that it guarantees, or it doesn't guarantee, but it reassures the reinsurance companies that they're not going to have 100 homes in Malibu for their $1 billion. So what it does is it puts one in every area across California.
The property values are part of this as well.
Well, property values aren't relevant. It's more about size, a rebuild.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
So there's sections of California where the rebuild cost is $300 or $400 a square foot. There's sections of California that are almost $2,000 a square foot to rebuild that. So that is one of the biggest misconceptions. When I speak a ton in front of different realty offices and realtor associations. I'm a speaker for the Malibu. I've spoken Monterey, Santa Barbara, a lot of the West Coast realtor associations. That's the biggest thing I'm working with realtors is to educate that the sale price has no relevance when it comes to insurance. It's really the cost to rebuild. That's the most important thing to know. Total rebuild and total insurance value. That's what the insurance companies and the reinsurance companies want to know about and see. It's really important now.
So what steps should, there are so many questions.
It's funny, Denise, we get on this and I will tell you now, it's one of those things where I've done in this and I'm excited to be here. This could be a whole series. You and I both know we could do a series of questions our responses and things of that nature, not just one podcast. But I know you're wanting to get into
Let's plan
more.
on it. I'll call you after the podcast and we'll
Yep, we'll
work
get
something out. And
scheduled.
I also have a very famous real estate company person that I want to introduce you to, and we'll talk
Oh,
about
you're
that
so
as
sweet.
well.
The realtors love me. They love the fully transferable part of the policy. They love it for their clients because it really adds value to properties. You see, if you an example, if you have 4 houses on a street and one is in this program and the others are not, um, it adds value to all. According to the realtors that I've spoken to, it adds value because now that house can sell easily because the policy transfers at a better rate. So it's interesting.
Gotcha. Okay, keep going. I'll stay out of your way.
No, you're totally good. So I know you were asking about what consumers you do in California right now. There is an absolute ton of bad information going around. A lot of when I'm speaking is in front of consumer groups and associations is to really dispel the myths, um, and to really educate people because there's some really scary things that are going on right now. Not just the non-renewals, but really just bad information. First and foremost, at this moment, I cannot guarantee 6 months from now or even 3 months from now, but at this moment, there is a policy for every consumer in California, and including the California Fair Plan at the worst case scenario. So more than one policy. California Fair Plan, that for those that don't know, is a policy of last resort. We do also have other companies for 99%, 99.99. There's always the outliers. If you have a wood shake roof, as an example, or really old electrical, which is called knob and tube, you're going to have it replaced to get an insurance company to insure for either one of those. But right now, that's one of the biggest myths I get out to all consumers and talk about. There is options. I don't care if you're a 2,000 square foot house or a 20,000 square foot house, there are options in California. Right now, a lot of scare tactics and things of nature makes it seem like the sky is falling. Is what they always started Chicken Little, sky is falling. It's not great, but we are able to get policies or get people to the right direction to get policies. The bigger problem is what people don't realize is it's more about pricing. What is the cost?
Can they even afford it if you can guide them?
Yep.
Because right now, it's not just California, it's the rest of the country and frankly, a lot of the globe that's saying, I can't afford groceries.
Yep.
I can't afford car insurance.
Yep.
I can't afford to go to Chewy's anymore and I heard this the other day, I'm not making it up. I have cats. Everybody knows I have cats and I have a dog. Somebody said, Denise, I had to cancel my Chewy's order and go back to, and this is prescription food for these cats.
Yeah.
And go back to the next best thing from the grocery store.
Yep.
For pet lovers, that scares the bejeebers out of them. That's like poisoning your children.
I think
money is a big issue right now.
Oh, I think my wife would make me starve myself first before her dog got lesser value food, though. So it's kind of funny. My wife's pretty tough.
My Chewy's bill is more expensive than my grocery bill. I kid you not.
It's so funny because I laugh. I really thought that it would be really neat to have a boy dog this time. We have a 65-pound dog. I had an alpha female Labrador prior to her, and it was like one of my loves of my life. She was the greatest dog in the world. So when we go to get another dog, we get this puppy, and everyone goes, "What is he?" And we go, "Yes." And they go, "What do you mean, yes?" And we laugh and go, "He's everything." I mean,
I tell everybody about mine. What is she? Because she was a foster that failed, so she's still here, and now she's been here for many years. But I will just look him in the eye and say she is of indeterminate parentage.
Yes.
There's no other way to say it.
But man, I thought it was going to be so neat to have a boy in the house because I'm surrounded by girls in my life. I have 2 daughters, wife. I'm just surrounded, right? Get a boy in the house. Neat thing. Yeah. What did he do? He comes in. He's the favorite now. So he's been around. He's 8.5 years old, and he is absolutely mom's boy, and he loves his sisters. And he comes to me like, where are the girls? I get looked at, right? If they go away on a trip, I'm in trouble. So it's kind of he's nice to me, he hangs with me, stuff like that, but he is definitely about his girls. So it's pretty fun.
And you're paying those bills.
I'm paying those bills. I'm out there going full speed. Exactly. But going back to it though, it's really tough times. And what we have to do is fix change and make this change in insurance to directionally change. One of the neat things, our program builds for larger homes, and we know a lot of consumers say, well, I don't fit that criteria. Yes, you do, because when we're successful with our program, as we continue to be successful, more and more insurance companies are looking to model or copy what we're doing. And that's the greatest thing that I can say. With our concepts, we're engineering it so that it will reduce costs of insurance over time to stop what's going on. And that's the really big thing. I see a lot of talk right now in not just my state, but also the West Coast. And I see a lot of, regulators or politicians are talking about how to bring insurance carriers back in. And it scares me right now because we're not doing that. What we're doing at WOWS is going to affect the change and help bring people back to market. And we're pretty excited about that.
If you are modeling this for insurance companies, I'm guessing all over the country.
Well, West Coast.
How do they West Coast? Okay.
Yep.
So let's stick with the West Coast then. So how do they connect with you? Do you talk with them? Are you doing webinars? How are you helping them?
First of all, we're reorganizing it. Again, the number one reason why insurance carriers got beat in California, as I mentioned earlier, is oversaturation of a market. And we're helping with other areas to help with their challenges, to be able to reduce their exposures, but at the same time do it in a way that doesn't affect the consumer. And so by simply doing that, we're able to re-engineer things, and it just, the numbers don't, the famous line, numbers don't lie. I'm a numbers guy. I will apologize to everybody in advance out there if you call me and I send you a message or you email me if I misspell my name, is the joke. But numbers are what I'm not Rain Man, but I'm not far off when it comes to numbers. And we were able to show, and it's one of those things where we had to show the entire industry what we're doing and why the spread of risk is much more important than actual fire scores. It's incredible to be able to build portfolios
like that. Yeah, when you say it like that, even I understand it.
Yep, and that's what we're doing. So it's not like we've creatively. I had a lot of people, Robert, have you patented this process? How can you patent a process? I don't want to patent a process. It would be wrong for consumers. It would be wrong for everybody. If I could do it, but I was told there's no way to do it, because what I'm doing simply is doing the definition of insurance, spread of risk. So when I work with London,
since it's an idea, and it's, what do they call that? When it's your, oh God, it's on the tip of my tongue, but you thought it up, you built it, something out. I'll come back to it. My brain took a left and went to the dining room.
Well,
intellectual property. There we go. I found it.
Yeah, and what I would say is it's really not an intellectual property as much as a process. So I guess that could technically be intellectual property. My big thing is that there was, remember Apple and IBM back in the day. One was open source for those of the computer geeks, and one was closed source. Apple was closed source, and it was very difficult. I believe in being open sourced. I'm an open source person. I want consumers to be able to see what we're doing. You can find me online. We do webinars all the time. If consumers want to reach out to me, I answer. My joke is this is a Friday before, and we're running full speed all the way through. I'll be going till about 7 or 8 o'clock tonight with back-to-backs. So it's a great thing overall. We're going to help make a change. And as everyone can kind of tell by my voice and how I am, I don't ever shut down. It's a good thing about me. But I'm also OCD at the same time to be neurotically perfect, which most consumers like. Same with insurance companies, by
the way. So I guess what my question is, I mean, you don't want to patent it, obviously, and it isn't really intellectual, your property, but I'm wondering if at some point, and this is just me being a business person, you can franchise your knowledge and teach people
one of the great things
you do.
Well, we're doing that because the way we're structured, we are what's called a wholesaler or MGA. So we're appointing brokers throughout California and very soon through the Western United States. And so they'll be able to take the word out to the consumers. We're supporting that by working with different realtor associations and doing incredible podcasts like these to get the word out, to let consumers know there's a choice and there's change coming. And we're doing all
Most
the right
important
things.
thing. Right.
Yeah.
That's the most important thing you just said. So keep going.
Yeah. So we're just going full speed. We're going to go, we're going to keep going. We're going to win this fight. It's not a question of if. We've got the win. Now it's just, it's reorganizing and getting and continuing to move this thing forward so we can make sure we can all benefit from this process.
And I'm loving this conversation, by the way. I have to ask you, was there a point, and you said you've been doing this for 25 years, where the penny dropped and you said, there it is. That's what the problem is.
Yeah. It was about 5 years ago.
Ah,
I started seeing insurance carriers and handicapped insurance carriers pulling out of California or in the Western United States with both AIG and Chubb and some of the carriers starting to move. I was informing contacts at different insurance companies and trying to hold the market, seeing that, trying to almost feel like the kid trying to, almost like the old Felix old, trying to hold the line. But again, seeing that the system was broken, because what was happening is you'd have a company would come in, they would get saturation problems with too much of a given market, and then they would have to retreat. The idea or concept is to build this so that if you're a company and you want 5 billion of potential capacity, then that 5 billion should be spread out so that there's never more than a home or two in a fire. By doing that, you're spreading the risks and keeping the analytics together. Does people go, well, what do you mean? I go, well, you can put 5 billion in Orange County. Well, what's the problem if there's a major fire in Orange County?
Maui earlier. I mean, that was a
Yeah.
wipeout.
Yeah.
I don't know that it was fire. I can't remember now, but I think it
Yeah.
was. But I mean, that was a total wipeout and it's not
Yep.
being repaired. It's kind of like New Orleans.
Yep.
After Hurricane Katrina, there are still areas that are just
Yep.
gone, devastated,
Gone.
not rebuilt.
Well, and again, that goes back to the concept of saturation. So in a true balance, I'll never see this part. I don't think I will. I will. We're doing West Coast in wildfire and things of that nature and helping to bring regular homeowners insurance that covers the fire portion of it. But when you get into a true balance is balancing not just in multiple states, but in every state. So you can truly balance portfolios. And when you do that and do the balancing correctly, you can actually build it in a way where you can make it profitable for insurance companies, consumer be able to pallet the costs, and have the reinsurance companies be willing to support the insurance and the consumers. It's a win-win. Win. Almost forgot the last win right there.
This just popped into my head. It's not on my list of questions, but as you talk, I have a question. Arson. Arson's a big deal in California. It's a big deal in forests. It's a big deal. You know, California people may not understand this, but parts of California are very dry. And
that's a lot of
wildfires,
California.
I know.
Yeah.
And you know, you think, oh, California is so beautiful. You're thinking of Mendocino and you're thinking of, you know, just different parts of that are green and lush. Most of California is not, which is surprising to a lot of people. And I remember as a kid driving through those hills going, I hope we make it. I hope nothing happens.
Well, and there's not a section of California that doesn't have some kind of an issue regarding fire. Okay. California and a lot of the Western United States is this way. And there's a whole host of reasons. I use the study up because I'm, again, being kind of an OCD, I read way too much about the subject. And I was researching the different Indian tribes that were in California prior to us being here. And it was really interesting on one of the studies, and I don't have the exact one, so I can't quote it properly. But the tribes, what they would do when they would move from their different camps, because they would move from winter camp to spring camp and things of nature, they would set everything on fire when they left. They'd light everything on fire and they'd walk away. And when they come back, the ground was replenished, and things of nature. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done regarding forestry issues in the West Coast, proper maintenance of things. There are certain plants that don't seed unless there's a fire.
Here with sugarcane, it's burnt down every time it's harvested.
Yep.
Those fields are burned.
Yep. And so there's a lot of things while we're fixing insurance. There's a lot of things. Part of what we're doing with WOWS is, which is kind of neat, is for our program, we're getting close to launching our nonprofit part of this, which will really be an incredible thing because when we launch the nonprofit portion, it's going to give access to consumers to get insurance, but at the same time, what it's really going to do is help us with these different things that need to happen in the Western United States to affect change. We can use part of the money from the nonprofit to affect change, and that's going to be a neat part of it.
Hey, can you tell me a bit? I mean, I didn't have that on my list of questions either.
Oh,
Tell me about the nonprofit.
the nonprofit, we're in the final stages of. I have to be careful. I can't give all the details. I can say I have it, but I can't give all the details at this moment. But this is what it really what it does for everyone out there listening is it shows that we're not just an insurance broker trying to sell a policy. We're trying to affect change at WOWS. And so what it does is we understand the market. I'll segue back to one of the most incredible meetings I've ever had. And he's in London. The gentleman's name is Laz. I call him the godfather of reinsurance when it comes to California Fair Plan and things of nature. He's a major player. And the first meeting I ever had with him was incredible. My broker was laughing because it was like meeting the Pope or meeting some rock star. I knew who he was. He's incredible. And I was supposed to only meet him for 15 minutes for a very short meeting. And we started talking California Fair Plan Ease, basically its own language. And after 45 minutes, they finally whisked him out of the room. He had missed a couple meetings. And so it was just talking about all the different things. And it's a great situation where he was smiling about what we're looking to change. This is, again, things that I hate to use that word because I think it's used way too often, but we're affecting change. And that's what we need it needs to continue.
I have to go ahead and pop in again. You're talking about London and you're talking about, here, the United States, the West Coast. I probably did know this at some point, but I'm willing to bet that our audience doesn't realize that what you're doing is actually global. It's, State Farm is just not in the United States.
Yeah.
They have to deal with other countries, I don't think.
Well, the money behind it.
Right.
Yep, the money behind it. Yeah.
And I don't think people realize it's not just a United States thing. It's not just a California thing. This money is coming and going from all over the globe, as far as I can tell.
Yep.
Which I never thought of. It never occurred to me.
Well, and really, what it is it's really it's being able to have the funding to protect consumers. That's it. When that bad moment happens, like with you, where you had your roof blow off, it was horrific. I mean, you got your roof replaced, but there was no other coverages because the company went insolvent. Well, because the company had too much of without even knowing the insurance company, I can give you the answer. It had an oversaturation of consumers in a given area that caused them to go insolvent.
Correct. I mean, and when I say my roof was everywhere, just about every house, and we were only three streets deep, 3 streets wide. It's a small neighborhood. Used to be rural. We used to have corn fields. Now we've got houses, but it is what it is. But we were finding shingles for months. And I'd pick it up and say, well, that's not mine. I wonder who that one belongs to.
Yeah.
The other day, this was, how many years ago is this? I found some shingles underneath my pecan trees the other day. It's like, oh, geez, really? I mean, they just went everywhere. So we lost, roofs were just saying, see you later.
Wow. And being a barbecue fanatic, I have big trailers and things you said pecan tree. That's one of my favorite woods to use to burn. So when you're using smokers and stuff. So it's funny you said that. I kind of smiled with a pecan comment right there.
But you know what we do, and this is slightly off track, but when we have these big hurricanes, they're devastating. But I'm going to tell you, once you've done all you can do, to kind of protect what you have, put it away, lock it down, do whatever you can, get your water, get your batteries, make sure that you've done all of your homework. But once they hit They are genuinely magnificent. And I know that sounds nuts,
Yeah.
but you're really watching God's work.
Yep.
But when you mentioned, smoking and barbecuing, our power, it's the first thing that goes. We always keep water for some reason, but the power can go down for a
Yep.
week or longer. And the minute it's all clear, we get out and we clean up the streets and, make sure that nobody's going to
Yep.
step on a board with nails in it.
Yep.
And we bring everything out of the freezers that's about to go bad, and we have a giant party.
Yeah, you have to, because you're losing food anyway.
That's
You're gonna lose it anyway.
right. We take pictures of it because we're going to have to turn it over to the insurance. But smokers come out, and we have people here with big trailers and the big smokers, and all of a sudden you see those pull up in front of the house. You're like, woohoo! I'm bringing the ribs. So it's there's good and bad with all of these events.
Exactly. Well, and it's making what they'll start making lemonade out of lemons, basically.
Right. So you had mentioned, I think way early on, that the fire insurance crisis has been escalating for the past decade. What are you seeing?
But it's going to continue to be a bigger problem. Carriers are still pulling out, and not just California, but the Western United States. So it becomes a bigger and bigger problem. So it's just one of those things where we have to continue building and working, because if not, what's going to happen is not only carriers is going to be the expenses going through the roof, but you're going to find lack of options. And so that's what we're constantly working on, is we're just trying to help keep everybody in the game, including what we're doing with our concept.
I mean, I think I know the answer to this, but who needs to hear your blueprint for reengineering? And it's not just California, I don't think. I think a lot of people need to hear it.
Well, we're working with Nevada is one of the ones, as I mentioned to you, I really have a lot of admiration for the Department of Insurance in Nevada. They're doing an incredible job of trying to be in the front of this. Other states will follow. We're trying to fix California at the same time. It just, every time we can speak about this, it's more and more information that we need to get to information out to people, basically. And so again, like when I started at the very beginning of this, it was the myths. The myths are one of the biggest and most important things that we have to help get rid of.
That was going to be my next question. Are there any common myths about fire insurance that you'd like to address? I can hear them now. I mean, I've probably spouted a few of them myself.
Well, and what's going on right now is just a lot of bad information, as we mentioned. There are consumers being told by insurance brokers right now that they have no other option other than California Fair Plan. That's incorrect. That's not a correct statement. There's always options. I mean, to this point, there's going to be additional options. And so that's where it comes into play. It's a myth. It's a myth on how things get covered. So and coverages are really important to know.
I mean, shouldn't they be better serving their clients or their base if they know this?
Exactly.
And I wanted to ask you, and I'll get you to expand on that. But my next question is going to be, what the heck is the California Fair Plan? I've never heard of it.
The California Fair Plan is a policy in California designed to be a policy of last resort. It's a policy whereby if a consumer doesn't have, if there's no insurance options, for most consumers, it fits what they're looking for. What goes on, though, is there's limitations to that policy. It's not an entire servance of all. So if a house can be too big to eventually be in there, and that's another myth that's going on right now. Consumers will take the California Fair Plan, not have enough coverage, and they violate a state law that's really going to clip and hurt people as the next fires roll through.
Wow.
So, I mean, the bill, which I was just starting to talk about, was the bill is AB 2756. It's a bill that was passed a couple of years back. It requires consumers to have insured value within 80% of time of loss, or the policy reverts to what's called actual cash value. That's depreciation. So there's a lot of consumers in California right now that have the California Fair Plan that are going to fail that clause. They believe they have several millions of dollars of coverage and can have little or no coverage. These are all part of the bad myths that are out there.
Well, and I'm just going to pop in and say what I really think about anything that is legislated, that it's all bad.
You know what, I'll let you say that part.
I said it, and I
Yeah, you
meant
said
it.
it.
I
Actually, believe it
did.
or not, the one positive part of that bill was it allowed us to build the WOWS program. So I would say it was a really bad, potentially bad bill for a lot of reasons, but also a great opportunity to fix things for a lot of reasons. And so it was a two-edged sword, double-edged sword, as they say.
Makes sense. So, well, let's not go down politics right now.
Yeah, I was gonna say
I
we'll stay
frankly,
away from that one.
let's don't. But I will say that I think most politicians are not quite human. I'll leave that right there. But
Well, what happens is the problem is in anything in life, if you do not have information, how do you make informed decisions?
exactly. And if you don't know
And
what the heck you're
so,
talking about, and you're just going to vote for something because you want to go eat lunch.
yeah, I just get into it because the problem is that we deal with this on the insurance crisis that's going on the West Coast. Is there's just a lot of, like, even for elected officials, they're not getting proper intel, they're not getting proper information. And so by not getting proper intel, proper information, it it really affects and damages what's going on. So that's why we launched this, and we're going to continue to fight. We're going to use the nonprofit to help get information out. We're going to continue to fight, and that's all we keep doing.
Exactly. Technology. How do you see technology helping to address the evolving fire risk landscape?
Actually, we're 100% based on technology. The reason we're based on technology is our analytics spreads the risks, so there's never more than one home in a given fire based on fire patterns and AI and things of that nature. So when people ask how are you using technology, we're using technology to an extreme measure. We're spreading the risks so that an insurance company can be solvent with its portfolio. Is basically what we are.
The technology that you're using. I mean, is it in-house? Is it something that you
Well,
have
as
created,
far as us,
crafted?
we had it created. I am a humongous fan. There's a company called, for those out there, if you ever want to investigate, it's a company called CoreLogic. They are an incredible company. Um, I work with their senior leadership. They they are on the cutting edge of trying to help re-engineer what we're doing, and at the same time make it. They're known with the insurance companies. They're known with the reinsurance companies. They're just an incredible company. And what I like about it, they're a large company, but they're have the foresight of seeing what we're doing to really want to engage with us. I'll be speaking as a matter of fact on this. It sounds crazy, but it'll be January. They have a big conference in Los Angeles, and I'll be one of the panel speakers for them. They've taken that front forward thinking of what we're talking about doing and helping it take it to even further with their analytics. They're an incredible company.
Just the word logic in it makes me go, okay, gotcha.
Exactly.
Logic is not something that I think many of us employ these days, or critical thinking at any rate. But
Yep.
logic is important. And when you're pairing logic with human design and human engineering and AI and whatever it is that you're doing, it seems like that should go far.
Exactly. Exactly. So it's just part of the thing that we're doing, and it's just a matter of really trying to get all of it. It's again, as I made the comment earlier, we're all hands on deck at this point.
I mean, you sound very excited about what you do in this company. You've been doing this for 25 years. Why aren't you worn out?
Um, I just love what I do, especially now that we're in a position to make these changes and really help affect change. Um, I just like I guess I'm not very popular in some circles because I wake up in the morning thinking about this and I go to bed at night thinking about this. It's just a matter of how we do all these things to help make the change. It's like fixing. When I was growing up, I was one of those kids that did puzzles. I still do puzzles from time to time. This is just the greatest puzzle I've ever got to work on, is to how to fix and make a change.
I'm willing to bet that your brain works a lot. Mine, I think in pictures, and I'm a logical linear thinker when I'm not being snarky and sarcastic, but they work together. But I look, I'm a web developer by trade. I think I shared that with you, but I will be standing at my stove making gumbo. I'm in the South. Gumbo's a staple. And I can build an entire website while I'm stirring that roux. It's just the way my brain works. It's all a puzzle. I can slot this one where it needs to go. I can see what this one, let's move that one over there. By the time that gumbo is ready to simmer, because it'll have to simmer for a while, I'm back at my desk and I can write it all down. And that website, it's well on its way. And I'm
Exactly.
willing to bet you think the same way.
I do. I'm a big foodie, so I like to cook. I have my smokers and all kinds of crazy stuff. That's how I really. It's like people talk about doing yoga or things to how to zen or center themselves. I'm with you. I do it by cooking. I am 100% that way.
Creative people, people say, "Oh, I don't like to cook." To me, it's one of the most creative things that I can do.
Exactly. Actually, I have a fun
My brain
Instagram.
slows down. My brain is not going, "Oh, geez, I need to do this." And my brain is just focused on, that's going to work. No, don't do that. Yeah, and it's a lot of fun. It's creative and it's soothing.
Yep. I have a fun Instagram. People like to follow me on just for fun. I do it because I used to do a lot of the stuff. Like I was secret chef for Fox Sports UFC, sneak in there, my big trailers. If those out there want to see all the fun stuff I do, it's at, if you're on Instagram, at bob dot b as in boy dot QUE. So barbecue. And we did that years ago. It's just fun. Get to
Barbecue.
post all kinds of fun events, fun
Go
things.
find that. And
Yeah.
listen, insurance it's a lengthy topic. It's a hard topic for people to think about, but you're making it easy for them to say, "Oh, I do have options. Maybe I don't need to listen only to my broker. Maybe I need to do some experimenting. I need to do some searching. There
Yep.
are other options for me."
Yep.
So when people get into that mindset, like, "Oh God, oh God, oh God, my insurance company just left and I don't know what to do, and I'm going to have to take the first insurance company that comes along," I think you're giving them a lot of hope.
Exactly. That's the, if I can do anything with what we're doing, is not just fix the problem, but dispel myths and give hope. That's, you nailed it in a nutshell right there.
Because like insurance is expensive, everything's expensive. I mean,
Yep.
I was looking at my grocery bill the other day and going, back to Chewy's. Okay, the
Yeah.
cats need this.
Yep.
And I'm not entirely sure I need 5 avocados, so that could go. But I
Exactly.
want them, don't need them. But people right now across the globe, it's not just us. And I know I've stressed that before, but we're all looking at disappearing money. We're looking at disappearing assets. And, they may not be disappearing, but they're hiding. Maybe they're
Yep.
not, where they were. So, not so far back. But I think, and this is just what I'm hearing from you, if people will calm down, take a breath, and go do some research, find people like you. Don't take the first ship that runs into your door.
Yep.
I had a canoe run into my door during one of those hurricanes. It's like, I didn't even want to pick it up because there could have been an alligator under it, so I just left it for somebody
Yep.
else went and picked it up. But don't. I think what I'm trying to say and saying it poorly is don't grab that first offer that's made to you. Kind of like you don't take the first loan that's offered to you. There's better or not services out there.
Well,
But do your
and
due diligence is my point.
yep. And what happens, what's really unique with us is because we're an MGA wholesaler, we can just, for lack of a better term, we can get people to the right places. That's it. It's just getting people to the right places because we are appointing brokers throughout California. So we kind of know the landscape. So that's why we get a lot of those questions. Get a lot of those questions.
What are the most common questions that you hear from people? They've either
Well,
just
it's
lost
more of
their
a statement.
insurance.
I was going to say more of a statement than a
Oh,
question.
okay.
I get, hey, we lost our insurance, and then the question is help. And we start to look through and we start to go after really a lot of the things, to try to get them in, depending on what their risks are. We can go through, do profiles, we can do a lot of things where we can start trying to get them to the right places.
Yes. Now, when you've got people that just say, "I lost it because I couldn't pay for it anymore," what now?
Well, that's where we have to try to make some. Again, it's like the grocery list you were talking about,
Yeah.
the grocery bill. We have to start looking at it and seeing is does this work? Is there something that still can work? One of the really interesting things we talk about all the time, and I talk about all the time, and it's really a missed thought. In the realtor world, they talk, and in a lot of financial worlds, they talk about the home is the greatest asset most individuals will ever own. Homes are their greatest assets. So when I talk about that, I always use the analogy of as a true investment. So, for example, if a consumer owns a house and it's $2 million, some areas could be obviously not, this doesn't go for everywhere. I mean, in California, you could have homes that are $10 million. You could have homes that are, I don't see a lot of less than $1 million anymore, but I'll use the $2 million number as a number. 1% of $2 million is $20,000. Just do simple math. So instead of it being a home with a $2 million asset, imagine that if I converted that 2 million to a $2 million portfolio and I was a stockbroker. And I could look at a consumer and say to that consumer, for 1%, I can guarantee you don't lose on your $2 million. Would that consumer do it? And almost every consumer to a T says, absolutely, Robert, I would absolutely want my stocks covered, my investments covered for 1% of the cost. And my response is, well, why is that any different than your home? So the idea really is
that, I tend to be a little bit skeptical about most things. So when I hear something like that, so you're going to cover that, oh, good, let's go do it. I'm looking for what's the rest of the story?
Yeah. But again, though, the idea really of what we're looking at is really making sure we really talk about that. Because again, to your point, if people are skeptical, but they're willing to protect their 401ks and their investments, but they don't want to protect their homes. Think about that for a second.
Yeah, it doesn't make a lick of sense. Like, during hurricane season, we have been known, we have our little go bags, we have, our pet medication, we're ready. We've got some of it's already packed in the car just in case we have to evacuate. But our home may or may not be here when we get back. And it may not be because of the hurricane. It may be because of the tornado that hits after the hurricanes.
Yeah.
My home is important. I want it insured.
Yeah. And that's the most important thing. So when consumers don't take insurance or they can't afford their insurance, that's the conversation we have to have. It's as much as where you live, but it's also the investment portion of it.
Right. And if you come home and your house has been flattened,
you're not wearing anything. You're wearing what you own.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. So I would think, having lost my insurance some years ago, that would be a primary goal, to make sure that your home is protected as best as it can be.
Absolutely.
Interesting.
Absolutely.
Robert, this has been fascinating, and I hated to interrupt you so much, but I was like, I have questions. So I was like,
no, you did. No interrupt. I love it. I like the interaction. That's a great thing.
I was sticking my hand in the air.
Even though I have a deep voice, I'm always concerned. It's like, you get kind of on a roll, and I don't want to be on a roll too long. I want to make sure we can make sure I'm going in the right direction for your listeners.
And I want to thank you for sharing your truly inspiring journey and your insights with us. And before we close, and I have to reluctantly do this, but is there anything else that you'd like to share with our audience? And again, tell us where the Instagram thing, where can people connect with you?
Absolutely. First of all, foremost, it's very easy to connect. WOWS, WOWS insurance.com is our website. You can easily email me at robert@WOWS, WOWS insurance.com. And the Instagram was just a fun one. LinkedIn, I have a lot of people connecting with LinkedIn. That sounds great. Whatever, it's like smoke signals, any which way you can connect, it's a good thing. Reach out to me if you have any questions. We can definitely help consumers get to the right spots.
Well, listen, everybody, thank you for being with us. And in this episode of the podcast, the conversation focused very much on the fire insurance crisis in California with Robert Feldman, the CEO and co-founder of WOWS Insurance Services. And with 25 years of experience, he highlighted the need for industry innovation as home insurance have risen. The rates have risen 38% since 2019. That hurts my soul to even say that. He shared how WOWS is using technology, big data, and analytics to create a new industry blueprint, offering solutions like transferable coverage, love that, and sustainable property spacing. And these strategies aim to stabilize the market, address challenges for homeowners and insurers, and potentially reduce costs over time. And Robert also provided practical advice for homeowners facing coverage issues, including exploring options like the California Fair Plan, which I admit I had never heard of. So if you found this conversation insightful, I encourage you to connect with Robert Feldman on LinkedIn. He just gave us that information, or on his website at wowsinsurance.com, and tell him you found him on this podcast. And please leave a review on Apple Podcasts. And why? Your feedback helps me reach more listeners and continue sharing really valuable content. So thank you for tuning in, and I will see you next week. Robert, again, thank you so much.
The honor was mine. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Get your voice heard. If you would like to launch your own far-reaching podcast, contact Denise Griffitts at yourofficeontheweb.com and go to the podcast tab.